What's up, sports fans? This is the Lucas Ross Sports Channel. We continue with our 2025 college football predictions for the upcoming 2025 college football season. Up next is the Alabama Crimson Tide. Alabama last year in 2024. Coming off a 9-4 season last year in Kalen DeBoer's first year as the head coach of this Alabama football team, it was kind of a disappointing year for Alabama. Let's just say that right now. Some of the games on the schedule that they had last year, some of them they probably should have won regardless, but Alabama, they did miss the playoff last year, and they were able to finish like 9-4, so not a good start to the Kalen DeBoer era. But before we get into the predictions for 2025, I think this Alabama team is going to be really good. My thoughts on them: Ty Simpson, I think it's really going to come down to him. Is he going to be able to be ready to go here at quarterback for this team? Again, I think it's Ty Simpson that is going to be the starter for Alabama. Jalen Milroe is gone. That's a huge loss, but I think Ty Simpson is going to get better regardless. You know, first half of the year it might be up and down, but second half I think he's going to be a little bit better. And I like the wide receivers that Alabama has on this team. They got Ryan Williams back, and I think they have a bunch of good weapons there at the wide receiver position. So I think this offense is actually going to be a lot better compared to last year. And then defensively, I think a lot of people are sleeping on this defense. So they do return a good load of defensive players from last year. So that's my thoughts on Alabama. Let's now get to the schedule for 2025. This is the schedule for Alabama. Again, they were 9-4 last year in 2024. So let's go game by game, and I'll give you my official prediction for this Alabama football team for 2025. And they start things off with a big one, and it's on the road at Florida State on August the 30th. Again, when this game kind of came out, I thought it was kind of a weird non-conference game to kick off the season, especially playing this one on the road, but I kind of like it. You know, I think Alabama definitely kind of needs that tough competition to begin the season. Although the Seminoles last year, they were not really good. They were a 2-10 team last season. This is a Florida State team that has just got some question marks. Are they going to be better this year, or are they going to have another disappointing year? Well, I think they'll be a little bit better. I don't know if they'll become an ACC contender or not, but they added a lot of additions in the transfer portal like they always do every year. But I think Alabama, you just look at their roster compared to Florida State's, I think it's a little bit better. I think it will be a close game, and obviously this is the first game that we're probably going to see Ty Simpson play in if he's the starter, which I think he will be. I think the first half, I think it's going to be a close one, and then by the third quarter, I think that's where Florida State probably runs out of stamina. I think Alabama takes advantage with their offense, and I think Alabama does go on the road and beats Florida State here on August the 30th, and I think that's a noon kickoff, so I think Alabama does win it here, and I got them starting off 1-0, and then they take care of ULM Monroe on September 6th, so Alabama improves to 2-0, and then after that, it's Wisconsin at home on September 13th, so they play a couple of Power 4 teams in the non-conference, but you look at this Wisconsin team, this is another team, disappointing year last year, Luke Fickell's second season. Wisconsin is just a team that I have a lot of question marks for. I think they do got some playmakers on the roster, but it's just definitely not on the level of Alabama's. Last year's game was on the road at Wisconsin. It was not a close game at all. Alabama blew them out. I don't know if it's a blowout this time, but Alabama's playing at home, so they definitely overall should win this game. So I'm going to say they win it by a couple of touchdowns. Again, not a blowout against a Power 4 team in Wisconsin. Maybe they win by 17. You never know how much they can win this game by. But I got Alabama improving to 3-0, and then they get their first bye week before playing, of course, Georgia on the road on September 27th. These two teams, I think, are dead even. They got two similar, similarities. Different quarterbacks here going at it. Gunnar Stockton for Georgia, and then Ty Simpson here for Alabama. So these are kind of like the first real test here for both of these quarterbacks. You look at Georgia, I think their running game is actually going to be the strength of the offense. Their receivers had to really step up compared to last year. Obviously, the defense is no concern whatsoever. And I did Georgia's prediction already, and I did pick the Bulldogs to win this game. Again, I think Georgia playing at home, I think that's going to be probably the difference, and this is just a tough one to call. Wouldn't be surprised if maybe Alabama beat Georgia again like they did last year, but this time playing in Athens, I think Georgia comes in a little bit fired up, especially after losing to Alabama last year, and I also think the defense is going to be the difference here for the Bulldogs in this game. So I got Georgia winning here and giving Alabama their first loss of the season, so that puts Alabama at 3-1. Next game is at home against Vanderbilt on October the 4th. Obviously, Vanderbilt beat Alabama last year on the road in Nashville. This time it's at home, though, for Alabama. So this is a game that definitely Alabama will come in pretty angry, especially after a loss to Georgia. And also, they could be a little bit beat up after the Georgia game, so maybe they kind of start off slow, but I think Alabama is definitely going to win this one big. I don't really see it being a close game. And look, I know Vanderbilt beat Alabama last year, but that's just last year. This is this year, and obviously Alabama will come in a little bit, fired up in this one because they lost to this Vanderbilt team last year. So I think Alabama wins that game fairly easily, and I got them improving to 4-1. Next game is on the road at Missouri on October the 11th. Alabama shut out Missouri last year 34-0. This is a game that probably will be a little bit closer compared to last year's game. But you look at this Missouri team, they lost quite a bit on the offensive side of the football, including their star receivers from last year. Their defense, though, I think has a pretty good shot to keep them in this game against Alabama. But I just think the weapons on offense for Alabama is going to be probably too much for Missouri's defense to handle, especially the secondary. So I think Alabama does win this one. I think they probably pull away in the second half. Maybe it's close in the first half, but then Alabama's offense starts to heat up, and I think they pull away in the second half and win this one by at least a couple of touchdowns. So I got Alabama improving to 5-1. Then they play Tennessee after that on October 18th. This is another one of those revenge games for Alabama. Tennessee and Alabama's rivalry, their games have kind of been close now in the last 3 seasons. Again, Alabama has dominated the series, but Tennessee's definitely gotten close with Alabama in this series as of late, and they beat them last year in Knoxville. This year at Bryant-Denny Stadium, I think Alabama does that kind of does favor them in this game a little bit, and I just look at the offense for Alabama. I think it's a little bit better than Tennessee's because Tennessee lost quite a bit on the offensive side of the football. I think Tennessee's secondary, though, might actually keep them in this game, but I think Alabama might have an advantage at running the football here, and I think that's going to probably be the difference. So I think Alabama running the football against this defensive line of Tennessee, I think it's going to be enough. So I'm going to go with the Alabama Crimson Tide to beat Tennessee and get revenge on them from last year. So that puts Alabama at 6-1. And then they play South Carolina on the road on October 25th. Oh boy, this is a tough one for me to predict. South Carolina, very close to beating Alabama last year at Bryant-Denny Stadium, if you don't remember that game. South Carolina was the team that actually was going to probably ruin Alabama's playoff hopes. This South Carolina team, I think they're going to be a top 15, maybe a top 20 type team this year. They got Lenore Sellers back at quarterback, which gave Alabama plenty of problems last year, and I think he's going to do that again in this game. And I think South Carolina is probably going to have a game plan to probably run the football in this game with their quarterback and also their running backs, and probably waste the clock down to keep that Alabama offense off the field, and that's probably going to pay off. And I also like this South Carolina defense. They got plenty of guys coming in from the transfer portal, and that also could be a huge difference. Plus, playing at home, I think South Carolina actually pulls off the upset here. I wouldn't really call it an upset because this likely could be a top 25 matchup, but either way, South Carolina could be the underdog here, and South Carolina does definitely show off that underdog mentality, and they beat Alabama here, so they get revenge on Alabama after losing last year in a pretty close game. I think it's pretty close, but I think South Carolina does win it, so I got Alabama losing their second game of the season at South Carolina there on October 25th, and that puts them at 6-2. They get their second bye week. It's actually a pretty good spot for a bye week after that, tough loss to South Carolina. They play LSU, though, coming out of the bye week on November 8th. This is an LSU team that I don't think is going to be an easy game for Alabama. I know last year's game was not even close in Baton Rouge, but This is at home for Alabama. I mean, Alabama definitely is the better, is going to have like home field advantage, but I do expect LSU to be more competitive this time. The Tigers are a team that's loaded with some transfers on the roster, and this offensive line definitely has a question mark for LSU. That's probably the only question mark I have for the Tigers, but defensively, I think that defense is going to be much better compared to last year, and they also got Harold Perkins coming back, so this is probably going to be a dogfight here. I think it's going to be one of those low-scoring defensive games, but it's just a tough one to call. So with that being said, I think home field advantage might be the difference here, and I'm going to go with Alabama. So I got the Tide winning against the Tigers for the second year in a row, and that puts them at 7-2. I should say probably 3 years in a row because they beat them in 2023. Last time LSU beat Alabama was at Tiger Stadium in Baton Rouge, where they won in 2022. After that, though, Alabama plays Oklahoma next on November 15th. This is another one of those revenge games for the Crimson Tide. I think Alabama is going to come in more fired up for this revenge game instead of like the Tennessee and Vanderbilt games. Those two games are at home as well, but this will be a game that they'll even be more fired up for because Oklahoma last year gave Alabama their worst loss of the season, 24-3. Yeah, Alabama just could not go up against this Oklahoma defense. I think it's going to be a low-scoring defensive game. I think Oklahoma's got a good enough defense to keep this low-scoring, but I just think a late touchdown probably is the difference. But Alabama plays good defense as well, and I also think playing at home, that is the difference. So I'm going to go with the Crimson Tide here to improve to 9-2 after beating Eastern Illinois as well. And so that puts Alabama at 9-2 going into the final game of the season, and that's the Iron Bowl at Auburn on November 29th. This is another one of those tough games to really call here. This is an Auburn team that's coming off a disappointing year last year, and obviously Alabama beat Auburn pretty easily at Bryant-Denny Stadium. Well, this time it's at Jordan-Hare, and this is one of the toughest places to play in all of college football, and we know that Alabama's had some problems with Auburn here at this stadium, and this is also the first time that Kalen DeBoer is heading to Jordan-Hare Stadium, so definitely the first true road test here in this rivalry for Kalen DeBoer, and then obviously Ty Simpson. I mean, that's going to be definitely a tougher road game, probably compared to the South Carolina and Georgia games, but I mean, this Auburn team, they got a new quarterback in Jackson Arnold, a five-star guy. I mean, obviously, he can throw the football pretty well. I mean, Auburn's going to have, probably a good offense, but can their defense step up in this game? I think it's probably a shootout here in the Iron Bowl. I think both offenses are just dead even. Defensively, I would probably give the advantage to Alabama. I think in a shootout, I think it's probably going to come down to the fourth quarter. It's probably going to come down to a late second stop, and I think Alabama does take advantage of that. So this is a tough one to call, but I'm going to go with Alabama here. I think Alabama's defense does make the difference. The fourth quarter, maybe a late turnover probably changes the difference, or a stop on fourth down, and I think Alabama does take advantage of that. So I think Alabama does beat Auburn here on the road, but I wouldn't be surprised if Alabama did slip up in this game. Again, Auburn has given Alabama plenty of problems here at Jordan-Hare over the years. So I got Alabama finishing 10-2 in 2025. This is not a prediction that I don't feel confident about, but I could definitely see them going 9-3. But what if they go 8-4? That's definitely going to be a disappointment in my opinion. 9-3 though still might not be enough to make the college football playoff. If they go 9-3 again, that's probably another disappointing year for Alabama regardless, because Alabama is expected to do big things. But I got them going 10-2. I think with that they could probably make the college football playoff. But again, wouldn't be surprised if they did lose some of these home games, like either to Tennessee or LSU, maybe even Oklahoma. But I don't really see them losing to Oklahoma. And then also they could probably slip up against Auburn, and they can probably go 9-3 and then lose to South Carolina and Georgia. But I got Alabama going 10-2 in 2025, so that's my official prediction here for the Crimson Tide. Give me your prediction for Alabama down in the comments below. And do you agree or disagree with this prediction? Let me know your thoughts as well down in the comments below. Thanks for watching this video, and stay tuned for more sports content videos on my Lucas Ross Sports YouTube channel.